Hi, everyone. My name is Nina Kallen. I'm a Massachusetts attorney specializing in insurance coverage and bad faith issues. You're on my blog, Insurance Coverage Law in Massachusetts. I'm making this video to talk about some basic concepts that may apply if you own a building which experiences property damage, which is covered by insurance. So this would apply both to a house under your homeowner's insurance policy. It can also apply to a commercial building under your general liability policy, which would have property damage coverage under it. So the type of damage I'm talking about is anything that may be covered by your insurance policy. This includes fire. It can include hurricane damage in many situations. It could include if a vehicle drives into your building and destroys it, which happened in my neighborhood, unfortunately, within the last week. The first question is, what should you do if your building is being damaged? Obviously, you should call 911. If there's a fire going on, if someone's driven into your building, you want to make sure that everyone's safe, get yourself out, call 911. So safety is paramount, obviously much more important than anything else. What is the next step? Once you have secured the building, the fire is out, the first step is to notify your insurer. It's usually very easy to do that. If you have an insurance agent, you can call your agent who will take care of that for you. If you don't have an agent, you can call your insurer directly. The information on how to contact them is in your policy, but you can also just Google it. Google the name of your insurance company, how to make a claim with the name of your insurance company. The next thing that you want to do is not to find a lawyer. As much as I'd like to say that attorneys are the solution to everything, with a dispute over property damage, or even not a dispute, if you have property damage to a building, the next professional that you want to call is a public adjuster. A public adjuster is not an attorney. They are professionals who specialize in advocating with insurance companies about the amount of loss that a policyholder incurred as a result of property damage, again, damage to a building. They are very good at what they do most of the time. They are cheaper than attorneys. In general, at least in Massachusetts, they accept a contingency fee of 10%, whereas a Massachusetts attorney taking a contingency fee would charge 33% in most cases, and they would have to hire someone like a public adjuster. So basically what a public adjuster does is they understand insurance policies, they understand what's covered under insurance policies, and they understand what insurers need in order to adjust the loss. So one of the major things that a public adjuster will do is create estimates. Insurers use special programs. Sometimes you might hear the word Xactimate, which is a program which insurers use. Public adjusters have access to Xactimate or similar programs which insurers understand. It breaks everything down into the categories that insurers want to see. So after the loss, you've notified your insurance company, you've hired a public adjuster. The insurance company typically will hire, they might be called an outside adjuster, an outside company that will come take a look at the damage, decide what caused it, and put together an estimate. At the same time, your public adjuster is putting together an estimate. Typically, they're going to be pretty far apart. Not always, but in most cases, the insurance company may say, oh, this damage, it's easy to repair and it doesn't cost very much to repair it. And also the materials that were damaged were pretty inexpensive and can be easily replaced. Whereas your public adjuster will say, that the insurance company does not understand the true cost. It doesn't understand the materials that were used. It doesn't understand how much it's going to take to bring the building back into the condition that it was in before the loss. So there will be a lot of back and forth between the insurance company and the public adjuster. You'll be involved in that to the extent that you're talking to the public adjuster, you're receiving emails from the insurance company, but basically you've hired a professional to take care of that. Hopefully you've done your research, you've hired someone that's trustworthy and good. Just like with any other professional, attorneys plumbers, auto mechanics, you definitely want to check around and get references. Should you call your attorney at this point? And typically the answer is no. I'll come back to you in a few minutes when you do want to get an attorney involved. Most public adjusters, if they know what they're doing, they're pretty good about telling you when you do need the involvement of an attorney. But at this point, no. Sometimes just for your peace of mind, you might want to do a consult with an attorney who can walk you through the entire process of the claims adjustment process. I offer those consults, and again, the main purpose is for peace of mind, but it's not necessary. Some people really do appreciate it, and like I said, it's a service that I offer. Your public adjuster and your insurance company will be arguing about the covered part, what is covered under the policy. So the first thing that you should know is that although it's not what the public adjuster is going to focus on, and it may not be what the insurance company even brings up to you, you have a coverage in your policy, in your homeowner's policy, called loss of use. And what that covers is if your home has experienced such significant damage that it is not safe for you to stay there, or you can't stay there while it's being rebuilt, your loss of use coverage pays rent for you and your family to stay someplace else. The particular coverage is supposed to provide you a place to stay in a situation which is similar to the house that you're leaving. So in theory, if you live in a 4-bedroom house, loss of use coverage pays rent for a 4-bedroom house in the area where you live. One of the downsides of that is that it can be really difficult to find a short-term rental, especially in my area, which is Greater Boston. But you shouldn't think that you need to go and stay in a motel where you can't be comfortable with your family. You should be looking for an apartment where, if the rebuildings can take 3 months, 6 months, whatever, you and your family are safe and comfortable. You have a kitchen just like you have in your house. You have whatever you have in your house. You know, you're probably, just because of the market, you might not find something as pleasant and as big as your house, but you are entitled to that. That said, there are limits of how much the insurance company will pay for loss of use. So if it turns out that rebuilding your house takes a lot longer than you would hope, you do want to keep in mind the outer policy limit, because once that's reached, it doesn't matter whether or not your house is finished and you can move back in. The insurance company will not pay rent after that point. The next thing which is covered, which is where the public adjusters come in and really shine, is obviously the property damage, the damage to the house itself. So there's a number of categories and vocabulary which you will hear thrown around, and I'm just going to try to make it as simple as possible. In terms of your house has been damaged and it needs to be rebuilt, the first category, which is covered under your insurance policy, is called actual cash value. And that means, in general, I mean, this is something, these definitions are highly litigated. In general, actual cash value means the value of the material in the house as it is worth today. I'm going to come back to that in a second because that definition is almost meaningless. The importance of actual cash value is that that is paid upfront. As soon as the insurer agrees that actual cash value is whatever, $100,000, they cut you a check for that amount. And I'm going to come back to what you should do with that check when you receive it. The second concept that you should know about is called replacement cost value. Replacement cost is how much it actually costs to replace your existing material with material that you can buy in the world today. So if you have a house which is 40 years old, the furnace might be old, the bricks or the siding might be old, really ready to replace, replacement cost value covers what you can buy new. So it doesn't cover the cost of 40-year-old siding, it covers the cost of siding today. The difference between actual cash value and replacement cost value is called depreciation. And just like with actual cash value, depreciation is a definition which is argued about a lot. I'm not going to go into the details right now. But the main issue is how do you determine what the actual cash value is of something? Does 40-year-old siding have any value? And if so, how do you decide what that value is? So a lot of times that's not going to be an issue, but sometimes it is. All I can tell you is that your public adjuster understands these issues. The insurance company understands these issues. I understand these issues. So if there is going to be a fight about actual cash value, then there's plenty of ways to get more information about that. The important distinction between actual cash value and replacement cost value is that actual cash value is paid by the insurer at the time that they decide what they believe the actual cash value is. Replacement cost is not paid until the repairs are actually made. And so that can be a significant difference. Like I said, the insurance company will cut you a check for what's called the undisputed amount for actual cash value. A lot of times I get a call from policyholders saying they don't know what to do with this check. The insurer wrote them a check for $100,000, but then their public adjuster believed that the actual cash value is actually $150,000, $200,000. If they cash that check, are they giving up the argument that they're actually owed more in actual cash value? The answer is no. That check is for the undisputed amount. Once the insurer is convinced that the amount owed for actual cash value is higher, they'll write an additional check. If you feel uncomfortable about that, you can always send an email to the insurance company saying, I'm cashing this check, but I'm not giving up my right to argue that I'm owed more under actual cash value. There are other building coverages under your policy. There's a lot of subcategories. There's like coverage for shrubs and trees. There's coverage for waste disposal. Different policies have different categories. The main category that you're going to have to pay attention to, again, with the help of your public adjuster, is called code upgrades. So, like I said, replacement cost value is the cost of buying new material that would give you the house that you had before. Unfortunately or unfortunately, probably for the good of society, a 40-year-old house is grandfathered in with a lot of state and local code issues. So fire codes, for example, are always becoming more advanced. And when you make major repairs to a house, you have to bring it up to current code. So last week before the fire, it didn't matter that your house wasn't up to current code. It was up to the code when it was built 40 years ago. When you make major repairs, you have to bring it up to code. That is gives you a nicer and better house than you had, which means that this does not come within replacement cost. So there's a separate category of coverage called code upgrades. With the help of your public adjuster, you will need to show that the upgrades that you are making are required by the code. There's a lot of arguments about that, but again, it's the job of your public adjuster to make sure that you are that they're making the best presentation to the insurance company that they can. So far we've talked about two major categories of coverage: loss of use, which is rent, property damage, and all the subcategories. And then there's also coverage for damage to your personal property. That means your furniture, your clothes, anything that's in your house, which is not the building itself, or, we can argue about what's attached to the building and what isn't. Personal property, just like with the building itself, has coverage for actual cash value and replacement cost. So at the time, one of the things that your public adjuster will do is they will categorize and list all of your personal property. It's very tedious, especially if you have a lot of stuff. It'll be pages and pages of closet, 10 sweaters, boxes of pens. You definitely want a public adjuster to do this. I've seen people try to do it on their own. Do not do that. Have a public adjuster or a professional do that for you. Just like with the building coverage, you will immediately receive from the check the undisputed amount for actual cash value. You'll get replacement costs at the time that you replace your personal items. typically at the end. Insurance companies generally don't want to get a list every month of, I bought 3 new sweaters and a box of pens. But you know, you're entitled to do that if that's something that you want to do. So those are there's other coverages under policies, but those are the main coverages that you will be dealing with. I also want to say, so far I've been talking about residential properties. Business properties have additional coverages. The most important is one that we see frequently, especially in the age of COVID. There's been a lot of litigation about it, which is the loss that you've experienced because you've not been able to conduct your business while your building has not been usable. Again, that's something that a public adjuster will help you with. They have specialists for that. I've been really saying how great public adjusters are. I do know some great ones. Hopefully that's that you are working with a great public adjuster. Nevertheless, even with the best public adjuster, the time may come when you need to consult with an attorney. So there's two instances when you really need to consult with an attorney. The first is if the insurance company says to you, we are not providing coverage for this loss because it is not covered, any of it, no matter how much it's worth, it's not covered under your policy. Typically, it comes within a policy exclusion. A lot of times water damage will come into that category, or an insurer will argue that it did come within that category. Wear and tear, an insurer will argue, you know, it wasn't that that there was this giant storm and your house was struck by lightning and then water poured in as a result of not having a roof. They'll say, no, water had been slowly infiltrating your house for 10 years. That's wear and tear and there's no coverage. There's all kinds of reasons why an insurer may assert that there's no coverage under the policy. If the insurer makes that assertion, you want to consult with an attorney. A public adjuster is not allowed to discuss coverage disputes. That would be practicing law without a license. You want to talk to an attorney at that point. The other time that you want to consult with an attorney is if the public adjuster and the insurance company have reached a dead end about the amount of loss. So sometimes they're just very far apart and they can't agree. I will say that there's a process in place to come to a determination. Hopefully you never have to hear about this, but in your insurance policy and under Massachusetts state law, there is a procedure called a reference procedure, which is a type of arbitration in which 3 arbitrators who are called referees determine the amount of loss based on the evidence presented by both sides, you as the policyholder and the insurance company. The insurance company will say they could have rebuilt the whole house for $1,000. You'll say, no, it costs $300,000. Both sides present evidence and expert testimony, and the referees come to a determination about what the actual amount of loss is. You typically, and most public adjusters will give you this advice, if you are going to reference, you need to hire an attorney. Now, the third issue is there are timing issues involved. In Massachusetts, the statute of limitations, which is set forth in almost every policy in Massachusetts for property damage, is 2 years. However, that is misleading. Simply demanding a reference a couple of days before that 2 years is up, 2 years after the fire, does not necessarily protect your rights. You want to be well ahead of that. So I would say to anyone that if you want to consult with me as an attorney, as part of because you're concerned about a property loss, the public adjuster and the insurer can't come together, they can't agree, you need to reach out to me absolutely no later than 18 months after the loss, so that gives me enough time to make sure that all of your rights are fully protected within the 2-year limitations period. That said, you're welcome to give me a call anytime. Like I said, I do provide consults for a flat fee. I'm always happy to talk to you about where you are in the process, what you can expect, any concerns that you have. If you have legal questions that your public adjuster can't answer, I'm happy to talk about that. And again, if you're worried, it's a flat fee consult. Feel free to give me a call, set up an appointment. Always happy to do that. So that is my presentation on damage to real property in Massachusetts.